Welcome back, Lincoln Currency. Have you ever held something in your hand so small, so seemingly ordinary, so light and coppery, that it seemed impossible to believe it might be worth a fortune? Something that jingles in your pocket or rests at the bottom of a jar in your grandfather's garage? Imagine a penny, a single, round, copper coin. Nothing about it screams wealth. It doesn't glitter. It doesn't carry weight like gold. It's easy to overlook, easy to spend, easy to drop and forget. But now, consider this. What if I told you that one such penny, specifically, a 1970 Lincoln cent, might carry a value whispered in coin-collecting circles and debated in numismatic forums, not in hundreds, not thousands, not even millions, but a jaw-dropping $662 million, that number, $662 million, sounds more like a fantasy, a story told to make children dig through change jars. But it's a number that has caught fire online, passed around like legend. Is it real? Is it a mistake? Or is it just a glimpse into how rare, how fascinating, and how shockingly valuable some of these tiny copper tokens can become? Let's begin with what seems ordinary. The year is 1970. America is in a time of transition, politically, socially, and economically. It's post-1960s counterculture. Nixon is president. The Vietnam War is dragging on. And in Denver, Colorado, at the Denver Mint, small copper coins are being pressed by the millions. 2.6 billion of them, to be exact. These are the 1970 Lincoln cents, named for the small d mint mark below the date, indicating they were minted in Denver. Most of them went into circulation like any other penny. Most were used to buy candy, bubblegum, bus tickets, and coffee. Most of them still are. But a few, just a few, hold mysteries. Let's talk about what these coins actually are. The 1970 penny is made primarily of 95% copper and 5% zinc, giving it that familiar reddish-brown hue that can turn darker or greener over time. It weighs approximately 3.11 grams, standard for pennies made before 1982, before the U.S. Mint shifted to a cheaper, lighter composition of mostly zinc. That weight, though small, is important. Any variation can signal an error, a double strike, a wrong planchet, or even a fake. These are the kinds of details collectors obsess over. Be sitting on a small treasure. Let's imagine that. Let's say you have a 1970 penny tucked away, untouched, shiny, stored in an airtight capsule. You send it in for grading, it comes back as MS67RD. You list it at auction. Suddenly, bids roll in. $500. $1,200. $2,800. Because collectors love the thrill of perfection. Now imagine that coin is a double die. The letters look slightly blurry because they were stamped twice. Or perhaps it was struck on the wrong planchet, a blank meant for a dime or foreign coin. That kind of error? Now you're talking 5 figures. Possibly more. And with the internet ablaze with rumors of the mythical $662 million penny, attention multiplies. Some coins, even common ones, rise in price simply because of hype. Here's another thing: numismatics, the study of coins, is not just a hobby. It's a world of science, economics, art, and history. The tiniest minting flaw, the smallest inconsistency, can turn a 1-cent coin into a 1 in a million piece of history. Maybe the coin was struck with a grease-filled die, leading to missing letters. Maybe it has a rotated die error, meaning the back and front aren't aligned correctly. Maybe it's a transitional error, using old dies or incorrect metal composition during a switch year. All of these quirks are rare. And rarity drives value. So what about the weight? We know it's supposed to be 3.11 grams. But what if it weighs 2.5 grams? That could suggest it was struck on a post-1982 zinc blank, an impossibility in 1970, making it either a modern fake or an astounding mint error. Or what if it weighs more? Maybe 3.5 grams? That could mean a foreign planchet, perhaps meant for a Canadian cent or a South American coin. These anomalies excite collectors like detectives chasing clues. The more you look into this single penny, the 1970 D. Lincoln cent, the more it reveals. It's a time capsule. A conversation piece. A symbol of inflation, history, politics, and mystery. It's a link to Lincoln, to the 20th century, to the mint, to a whole subculture of people who pore over coins by lamplight and loupe. Some of them hunt coins for profit. Others do it for passion. But all of them know this: sometimes the smallest things hold the greatest value, and so we return to that mythic $662 million number. Real? Doubtful. But could a coin like this one be worth $6,620? Yes. Could it be worth $66,200 in the right condition with the right error? Possible. Could it be priceless to a collector who finds the one coin missing from their lifetime collection? Absolutely. Because value is more than just a number. Value is rarity. Value is story. Value is obsession. And nothing symbolizes that more than a humble 1970 D penny. That's only the beginning. Because what you think you know about coins, what they're made of, how they're created, what they're worth, might be completely different from what you'll find if you look just a little deeper. That 1970 D. Lincoln penny in your drawer? It may not buy a cup of coffee anymore. But under the right light, with the right eye, it might just buy a dream. Let's now go beyond the shine of the copper. Beyond the clean lines of Lincoln's profile. Beyond the myth of $662 million. Let's go into the machines, into the process, into the roaring, clanging heart of the Denver Mint in 1970. The minting floor is no place of romance. It's metal, pressure, repetition. But what emerges from it are works of art, tiny, uniform, mass-produced masterpieces, each with a history, each with a chance, however small, to be different. In 1970, the United States Mint used dies, engraved steel tools that strike the planchets, or blank coins, with incredible force. Each die is carefully engraved with the coin's design, Lincoln's portrait on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. A hub is created, then a master die, then working dies. But humans are involved. Machines wear down. Errors happen. A slightly tilted die. A damaged hub. A misalignment. A repunched mint mark. These imperfections are what separate one coin from another. Imagine for a moment being the person working the mint press that day in Denver. You're feeding metal blanks into a machine designed to strike up to 100 coins per minute. You don't stop to inspect every strike. You can't. The volume is too high. But one coin jams the machine. You pull it out, notice something odd, but you're behind schedule. You toss it in the bin, let it go. That coin? It could become the stuff of legend. And if that coin somehow ended up in a roll, went to a bank, made its way into the world, and found its way to a collector's hand, then it begins its second life. That second life, what we call a coin's provenance, matters more than people realize. Where has it been? What kind of life has it lived? Coins carry stories. Some have sat in safe deposit boxes for decades, untouched, preserved, flawless. Others have lived hard lives, scraped against vending machines, dropped on sidewalks, left in the sun, corroded by moisture. Condition becomes everything in numismatics. A single scratch can mean a drop in value from thousands to cents. A gleaming, untouched surface with original red luster, however, can push a coin's worth into the stratosphere, and this is why grading exists. Professional services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Company, grade coins on a 70-point scale. The closer to 70, the more perfect. An MS-60 is uncirculated but may have contact marks. An MS-65 is choice brilliant. An MS-67 or higher? That's a dream, rarer than you'd think, especially from a mass-minted coin like the 1970 D cent. If you happen to have one, untouched, brilliant, fully red, you've got something valuable. Maybe not $662 million, but possibly several thousand, depending on demand, rarity, and collector frenzy, and frenzy matters. The market for coins, like the market for art or luxury watches, is driven not just by logic but emotion. A collector who has been hunting for a perfect 1970 D for 20 years will pay more than one who's casually interested. A well-known YouTuber claiming to have the rarest coin ever found in pocket change can spark a rush of interest overnight. Values spike. eBay listings multiply. The myth grows. And people start believing in the impossible, that a coin with a face value of 1 cent can be worth more than a Picasso, a mansion, a sports team. That's where the $662 million myth comes in. It likely started as a joke or an exaggeration. A fake eBay listing. A clickbait article. Maybe even a collector inflating the value of a coin for attention. But the internet doesn't forget. One article quotes it. Then another. Suddenly it's true, even if no auction house has ever confirmed it, even if no coin of any kind has ever sold for even half that. But myths have power. They create hope. And hope drives curiosity. People go digging through their change. They go to coin shops. They search for treasure in the ordinary. The truth is, no 1970 D Lincoln penny has sold for $662 million. The record price for any penny is around $2 million, held by a 1943 bronze cent or 1958 double die in pristine condition. Even those coins are astronomically rare. But the 1970 D has its own mystique. Why? Because it's part of a beloved series. Because it's old enough to feel historic but recent enough to be findable. Because its potential errors, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, double dies, are tantalizingly possible. And because stories, even untrue ones, have a way of infecting the imagination. Now, let's talk about errors. Real errors that drive value. Some 1970 D Lincoln cents show signs of RPMs, repunched mint marks, where the D was struck more than once, slightly offset. These are minor, but collectible. Others show die cracks, small raised lines where the die began to fracture. These are technically damage, but unique, and thus collectible. Then there are off-center strikes, where the design is not fully on the coin. A 10% off-center coin is fun. A 50% off-center strike with full date and mint mark? That can fetch hundreds, sometimes more. Even more valuable are double die obverse coins, where the doubling occurs during the die creation process, not from multiple strikes. These are rare and dramatic. Letters appear doubled. Lincoln's face may have a ghost image. These errors are prized. And if a 1970 D shows this kind of doubling, it's a major find. But so far, no confirmed examples exist. Still, people check every 1970 D under a magnifying glass hoping to be the first to find it. Authentication matters more than ever in this world. Scammers exist. Coins are altered, acid-washed, even 3D printed. Fake errors are created by amateur doctors who damage coins and try to pass them off as rare mistakes. But true collectors know the signs. They weigh the coin. They measure the diameter. They test the metal. They use high-resolution digital microscopes. They know that one incorrect detail can change a $10,000 coin into a 10-cent counterfeit. But let's return for a moment to the idea of the coin as symbol. The penny has often been mocked as useless, obsolete, a burden on commerce. And yet, it remains the most collected coin in America. Why? Because of Lincoln. Because of tradition. Because it feels like the last tangible piece of a simpler America. A time when pennies mattered. When you could buy something with them. When they weren't just digital zeros on a screen. A 1970 1970 penny isn't just a coin. It's an artifact. It's a piece of the Cold War, of civil rights struggles, of early computing, of Vietnam protests. That year, Apollo 13 barely made it back to Earth. The Beatles broke up. The first Earth Day happened. In that context, a penny seems insignificant. But it holds the fingerprint of that era. And it was made by machines operated by people, workers whose hands moved tons of metal, hour by hour, day after day, stamping out pieces of a nation's identity. So what is the value of a 1970 penny? At its core, 1 cent. In melt value, maybe 2 to 3 cents, depending on copper prices. In high-grade collector condition, maybe $1,000, possibly more. With an error, double that. In myth, in imagination, in viral internet lore, $662 million. And while the latter may not be factual, it captures something that is. The power of belief. The allure of rarity. The idea that treasure hides in plain sight. That something small, something common, can be uncommon. And that maybe, just maybe, the next great find is already in your pocket. This is the story of the 1970 Lincoln cent. And we're not done yet. Because coins don't just tell history, they make it. Now imagine a man in his garage on a rainy afternoon. He's sorting through an old box of belongings passed down by his father. In a rusted cookie tin filled with matchbooks, keys, and loose change, he finds a roll of uncirculated pennies sealed with yellowing Scotch tape. He doesn't think much of it. They're just pennies. Maybe he'll cash them in. But something about the roll, its perfect condition, its untouched luster, makes him pause. One coin stands out. It looks flawless. 1970, a tiny D below the date. He places it aside. Later, on a whim, he reads online about valuable coins. He stumbles across an article claiming that one 1970 penny could be worth millions. The article doesn't cite sources, but the idea sparks something in him. Hope. He gets the coin graded. It returns with an MS67 RD designation. Not the rarest grade, but among the highest known. He lists it. Bidders notice. It doesn't reach millions, but it sells for thousands. From a forgotten tin to a 5-figure sale. The journey of that 1 cent is now legend in his family. This story, or ones like it, play out again and again in the coin world. Not all of them end in riches. Many end in disappointment. But the spark is always the same, the idea that forgotten value hides in ordinary things. That a penny, overlooked, underappreciated, nearly dismissed by modern commerce, can become a golden ticket. It's this psychology that drives the coin collecting market. Hope mixed with obsession. Nostalgia fused with speculation. A belief that history is not just something we read about, but something we might own, in the form of metal in our palms. Let's talk about auction houses. Names like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections are giants in the numismatic world. They set the tone. When one of these houses lists a rare cent, eyes turn. Collectors study the listing. They debate the coin's surfaces, its strike, its toning, its pedigree. Some coins carry famous lineages, the Elias Berg collection, the Norweb collection, names that give provenance, prestige, and certainty. But sometimes, a no-name coin, submitted by a first-time seller, stuns the world. These are the stories that breathe life into collecting. When a 1970 cent in pristine condition hits the block, with unique features or an error never before seen, collectors go to war. Bidding wars erupt. Prices double, triple, spike beyond estimate, but prices can also crash. The coin market, like any market, is subject to hype, emotion, and cycles. A rumor can inflate values for weeks, until the truth comes out and everything settles. A YouTuber claims they found a $662 million penny, and suddenly, every 1970 penny on eBay is listed for outrageous sums. None sell at those levels. Collectors, savvy ones, know what's real. But the excitement trickles down. Newcomers enter the scene. Searches rise. Views increase. Coins that might sell for $50 suddenly go for $500. It's not sustainable, but it's powerful. This phenomenon isn't new. The 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle, a $20 gold piece, sold at auction in 2021 for $18.9 million, smashing records. Why? Because of rarity, yes, but also because of story. The coin was never supposed to be in circulation. It was part of a secret batch. A few slipped out. The government chased them. It became myth. That story created desire. And desire creates value. Could the 1970 penny ever reach those heights? Not unless a never-before-seen error emerges. But could a specific example, minted on the wrong planchet, double-struck, with full red luster, MS-68 grade, crack 5 or 6 figures? Yes. And all it takes is one. Now think of the psychology behind a collector's drive. It's not about the metal. The copper in a penny is worth more melted than whole, but melting them is illegal. It's not about utility, pennies can't buy much. It's about meaning. Control. The idea that you can hold history. That you can possess something no one else has. It's about hunting. About order in chaos. Every coin roll is a mystery waiting to be solved. Every coin jar could hold a fortune. Every pocket is a treasure chest. This isn't just collecting, it's archaeology, psychology, passion. Some collectors specialize. They seek every known date and mint mark combination. A complete Lincoln cent collection from 1909 to today? That's a lifetime pursuit. Some seek errors, coins that never should have made it out of the mint. Others chase only high-grade examples. Still others are completionists, trying to own one of everything in American coinage. But all of them, in one way or another, are chasing the same feeling, discovery. The moment of finding something overlooked, undervalued, hidden in plain sight. And what about the naysayers? The economists who say coins are bad investments. That prices fluctuate. That few ever get rich. They're not wrong. Coin collecting, like any collectible field, has risks. Overpaying, fakes, market slumps. But that misses the point. For true collectors, it's not about guaranteed profit, it's about potential. About wonder. And sometimes, yes, about making the find of a lifetime. There are famous cases. A man in Massachusetts found a 1943 copper cent, a coin that was never meant to exist. It sold for over $1 million. A kid in California found a misprinted quarter at a car wash. It paid for his college tuition. A woman in Texas found an 1856 Flying Eagle cent in a dresser drawer, worth tens of thousands. These stories fuel the belief that maybe, just maybe, lightning can strike again. And for many, the 1970 penny feels like the perfect candidate. Why? Because it looks normal. Because billions were made. Because it's not flashy. But underneath that ordinariness lies potential. What if there's one struck on a silver dime planchet? One with a double die not yet catalogued? One with a dramatic off-center strike and full date? These possibilities aren't just dreams, they're real outcomes that have occurred in other years, other mints, other coins. And if they happened there, they could happen here. Even the act of searching becomes ritual. Coin roll hunters spend hours opening bank rolls under bright lamps, eyes scanning for color, luster, doubling. Gloves on hands. Loop at the ready. Digital scale to the side. They sort, they grade, they catalog. They post finds online. They trade. They sell. They form communities, forums, YouTube channels, Discord servers, all centered around the humble coin. And in those communities, the 1970 penny is a hot topic. Because it's just common enough to find, but just rare enough to dream, and the coin itself? It doesn't change. It remains copper. 3.11 grams. 19 millimeters in diameter. Plain edge. Victor D. Brenner's bust of Lincoln, calm, solemn, eternal. Frank Gasparo's memorial on the reverse, lined straight and proud. It is a monument. Not just of stone in Washington, D.C., but of the values it represents: history, unity, perseverance. To collectors, that little disc of copper is more than money. It's a story. A symbol. A possibility. So when someone asks, "Why are you digging through pennies?" the answer isn't simple. It's not about finding a $662 million jackpot, though the fantasy is fun. It's about something deeper. The joy of pursuit. The echo of the past. The control of curation. The thrill of owning a piece of time. And even if most of those pennies turn out to be worth 1 cent, that 1 cent is no longer just a penny. It is a moment. A reminder. A connection. And if, someday, someone finds a 1970 penny with a confirmed, dramatic, one-of-a-kind mint error? If it's authenticated, graded, and sent to auction? Who knows what it might sell for? $10,000? $100,000? More? Could hype, story, and scarcity drive it even higher? In this world, where art, coins, comics, sneakers, and NFTs rise and fall on belief, anything is possible. And until that coin is found, the legend grows. This is why the 1970 Lincoln penny continues to fascinate. Because it sits at the crossroads of truth and myth, history and fantasy, copper and gold. And for those who understand, who really see the coin not just for what it is, but what it might become, there is no such thing as just a penny. The year is 1970. America stands on the edge of a transformation it cannot yet define. The energy of the 1960s still lingers in the air: civil rights marches, assassinations, moon landings, but the mood is shifting. The optimism is fading. There's tension, exhaustion, uncertainty. Nixon is president, promising law and order, while protesters fill streets from Washington to Berkeley. The Vietnam War rages on. The draft continues. Inflation is beginning to nibble at the American economy. The gold standard is cracking. And against this backdrop, billions of pennies are being struck, copper coins rolling out of Denver and Philadelphia by the truckload. At first glance, the penny feels disconnected from this upheaval. Just a coin. But the truth is, currency reflects identity. The Lincoln cent was born out of a desire to honor a unifying figure at a time when America needed unity. When Victor David Brenner designed Lincoln's profile in 1909, it was revolutionary. No living person had ever appeared on U.S. currency before, and Lincoln had been dead just 44 years. The coin became a symbol of reconciliation, of progress, of principle. In 1970, his face still stood, calm, resolute, unblinking. A reminder of what had been, and what could be again, and the penny itself. A paradox. Small, almost worthless to the untrained eye, yet deeply rich in story and symbolism. It is the most widely distributed piece of American currency, more than any dollar, quarter, or dime. It circulates in pockets, purses, jars, drawers, dashboards, sidewalks. Everyone has touched one. Everyone has given one, received one, lost one. And in 1970, that same coin, weighing 3.11 grams, was still made mostly of copper, a valuable metal even then. Its production cost more than its face value. And yet it remained, stubbornly, a single cent. Fast forward to today, and the question still hangs in the air: why does the penny endure? Why hasn't it been eliminated, as so many economists have argued? Canada retired its penny in 2012. Australia and New Zealand abandoned theirs decades ago. They cited cost, inefficiency, redundancy. But America holds on. Partly out of tradition. Partly out of inertia. But also, partly, because of the Lincoln cent itself. No other denomination holds as much emotional and historical gravity. It's the coin of childhood lemonade stands. Of, a penny saved is a penny earned. Of, see a penny, pick it up. The penny is memory. And memory is powerful. Collectors understand this. They don't just see coins. They see echoes. A 1970 Lincoln cent is not just a disc of copper. It's a fingerprint of its era. Each one is a time capsule of American industry and politics and aspiration. And when a collector holds it, examines it under light, turns it over between gloved fingers, they aren't just assessing metal, they're communing with history. But let's also look beyond America. Around the world, coins have taken on similar roles, as national symbols, as everyday art, as economic indicators. The British penny has evolved since the reign of Queen Victoria. The Indian paisa has shifted with colonialism and independence. The euro cent coins feature symbols from individual member states, a fusion of unity and sovereignty. But the Lincoln penny? It's uniquely consistent. The obverse has barely changed since 1909. Few coins in the world can claim such longevity without redesign. It is stability personified, and yet, value is always a question of perception. Why is one 1970 penny worth 1 cent, while another, nearly identical in appearance, could sell for hundreds, even thousands? This is the core of collecting. It's not just the object, but the narrative around it. Grading, rarity, condition, provenance, demand, these things determine value, but they're also shaped by story. You can hold two coins that look the same to the naked eye. But one might have been struck from a fresh die, stored in mint-sealed packaging, never touched by human skin. The other might have passed through 1,000 hands. One is art. The other is utility. The market rewards the difference, and markets are living things. Influenced by taste, nostalgia, macroeconomics, even media. When coin collecting booms, so do prices. When the economy slows or interest wanes, values dip. But the best coins, the truly special ones, retain their mystique. They transcend trends. The 1970 penny isn't just part of a fleeting fad, it's part of a century-old series that has shaped American numismatics. Entire books have been written on Lincoln cents. Scholars have catalogued hundreds of die varieties, errors, and subtypes. Whole lives have been devoted to this one series of coins. And the 1970 remains a central piece of that puzzle, but let's return to the myth of the $662 million penny. No coin has ever sold for that. Not even close. So why does this story persist? Why do people believe it? It's not just gullibility, it's a reflection of something deeper. The human desire to believe that hidden treasure still exists. That value can be lurking in the smallest places. That wealth isn't only found in vaults or banks, but perhaps in a dusty jar on a shelf. That story is irresistible. And whether the number is accurate doesn't really matter. The belief is the point, and this belief affects behavior. People search coin rolls more intently. They check their change more carefully. They bring coins to dealers and grading services, hoping, praying, wondering. Sometimes they find nothing. Sometimes they find something. But always, they participate in a tradition older than money itself, treasure hunting. It's the same instinct that drove the gold rush. The same impulse that sends divers to sunken ships. It's discovery. And the 1970 penny is one of the last frontiers of that everyday adventure, and for those who scoff, who say, it's just a penny, consider this. That same phrase, just a penny, has been used for decades, even centuries. And yet, the penny endures. In circulation. In culture. In dreams. And perhaps no year captures its strange duality, common yet collectible, simple yet mysterious, better than 1970. Denver, in that year, unknowingly struck billions of keys to a myth that still captures imaginations today, but we're still not done. Because we've yet to dive into the economics of copper, the post-1970 policy changes at the U.S. Mint, the impact of coin roll hunting culture in the digital age, and the transition from currency to curiosity. The story of the 1970 penny continues, and with every new collector who hears the myth, every child who finds one in a drawer, every hopeful soul checking their change at the grocery store, its legend only grows stronger. Let us now pull back the curtain on a lesser-known yet critical dimension of the penny's story, its metal. That unmistakable reddish hue, the solid feel, the sound when dropped on a hardwood surface, this is copper, and in 1970, every Lincoln cent contained 95% of it. The rest was zinc, a trace ingredient in a formula that had remained largely unchanged for decades. At the time, the intrinsic value of the metal in the coin still hovered below its face value. But the tides of inflation were creeping in. And by the early 1980s, that quiet shift in commodity pricing would transform the very essence of the penny, but in 1970, the penny was still honest. You could feel the density in your hand. Its weight, 3.11 grams, wasn't just a technicality. It was a signal of substance. Copper had value. Copper conducted electricity, drove construction, powered industries. And soon, it would become too valuable to remain trapped in coins worth only a cent. By 1982, the U.S. Mint would make a monumental decision. The copper cent would be retired. In its place, a copper-coated zinc core. Lighter, cheaper, less permanent. But in 1970, we were still in the era of real metal. Of coins that cost something to make. This matters more than it seems. Because collectors know what's real. They know the tactile difference between a pre-1982 cent and a modern one. They hoard them. Literally. Millions of Americans now hoard pre-1982 pennies, not because of historical interest, but because of melt value. At certain times, the copper inside a single pre-1982 cent has been worth 2 or even 3 cents. That's a 200% or 300% increase over face value. Multiply that by thousands of coins, and suddenly you have a pile of pennies that's no longer trivial. But here's the twist: melting U.S. pennies is illegal. Since 2006, the U.S. Mint has prohibited the melting or exportation of 1-cent coins in bulk. Why? To prevent mass melting for profit. It's a strange form of economic protection, preserving a coin whose face value is now symbolic. But legality hasn't stopped the hoarding. It's an open secret in collector circles. People stockpile copper cents, believing that one day the rules will change, or inflation will surge, and their jars of heavy metal will turn into real investment. And in the heart of those jars, perhaps unknowingly, sits a 1970 a coin with far more than just copper going for it, but beyond metal, beyond legality, beyond hoarding, there's another change that shaped the world of coins in the post-1970 era: technology. In the 1970s, coin collecting was analog. Printed price guides. Face-to-face appraisals. Small coin shows. Newspaper classifieds. But today? It's global, digital, instant. Anyone with a phone can become a coin hunter. Anyone with a camera and a social media account can broadcast a discovery. Anyone with a YouTube channel can spark a frenzy. This transformation cannot be overstated. Online marketplaces like eBay changed the game. Suddenly, coins that once passed from collector to collector in whispered trades were being auctioned to the world. A 1970 penny in high grade, once limited to a local show, could now reach thousands, millions, of potential buyers. And with it came a flood of listings. Some real, many exaggerated. Rare 1970 penny worth millions, they scream. The fine print usually reveals, not graded, not authenticated, but full of hope. And buyers come. Some skeptical. Some informed. But some, new, wide-eyed, believing this is where myth thrives. The digital age has amplified legends. What once was a footnote in a coin catalog is now a viral video. The $662 million penny myth didn't start in books. It was born on screens. It circulates through headlines, clickbait, social posts. It's repeated, mutated, distorted. And for every expert saying, "That's not possible," there are a dozen viewers wondering, "But what if it is?" And the truth is, the internet is not always wrong. It just amplifies potential. There are coins worth six figures. There are pennies that have sold for tens of thousands. There are discoveries made by average people with no numismatic training. In 2019, a teenager found a rare 1943 bronze Lincoln cent that sold for $204,000. He found it in a lunch money change. That story isn't myth, it's documented. And it keeps the dream alive. Today, new tools are emerging. AI-powered image recognition now helps identify coin varieties. Apps can scan a coin and suggest its condition. Digital scales, USB microscopes, macro lenses, these once niche tools are now widely available. The average hobbyist is now equipped with gear that rivals professional graders from a decade ago. And with that rise in access, comes a renaissance in collecting. More people. More eyes. More discoveries. And greater chances that a true rarity, a one-of-a-kind 1970 D error, might still be found, and that possibility excites. Because the minting process, despite its mechanized precision, is still human. Still flawed. Still capable of producing the unexpected. Maybe a Denver worker used a San Francisco die. Maybe a planchet intended for a foreign coin slipped into the machine. Maybe an experimental alloy was tested, struck, and never documented. Stranger things have happened. And collectors live for these anomalies, but even if you never find the error, never hit the jackpot, never crack the $1 million code, the journey still holds value. Every roll of pennies is a small history lesson. Every worn coin tells a different story. Every discovery is a moment of connection. Not just to wealth, but to heritage, to craft, to a tactile, analog world in an increasingly digital age, and in the center of that world is the 1970 D Lincoln cent simple. Familiar. Overlooked. But legendary. Not because it's guaranteed to make you rich, but because it represents the very idea that wealth can hide in the ordinary. That history is closer than we think. That even the smallest object can carry the weight of a century, and still, even now, even after everything we've explored, we've only scratched the surface. The tale of the 1970 D cent is not static. It evolves with each generation that discovers it, each collector who seeks it, each story that is told about it. From mint floors to digital auctions, from copper rolls to myths of millions, it stands as proof that even the humblest coin can stir the soul. Let us now pull back the curtain on a lesser-known yet critical dimension of the penny's story, its metal. That unmistakable reddish hue, the solid feel, the sound when dropped on a hardwood surface, this is copper, and in 1970, every Lincoln cent contained 95% of it. The rest was zinc, a trace ingredient in a formula that had remained largely unchanged for decades. At the time, the intrinsic value of the metal in the coin still hovered below its face value. But the tides of inflation were creeping in. And by the early 1980s, that quiet shift in commodity pricing would transform the very essence of the penny, but in 1970, the penny was still honest. You could feel the density in your hand. Its weight, 3.11 grams, wasn't just a technicality. It was a signal of substance. Copper had value. Copper conducted electricity, drove construction, powered industries. And soon, it would become too valuable to remain trapped in coins worth only a cent. By 1982, the U.S. Mint would make a monumental decision. The copper cent would be retired. In its place, a copper-coated zinc core. Lighter, cheaper, less permanent. But in 1970, we were still in the era of real metal. Of coins that cost something to make. This matters more than it seems. Because collectors know what's real. They know the tactile difference between a pre-1982 cent and a modern one. They hoard them. Literally. Millions of Americans now hoard pre-1982 pennies, not because of historical interest, but because of melt value. At certain times, the copper inside a single pre-1982 cent has been worth 2 or even 3 cents. That's a 200% or 300% increase over face value. Multiply that by thousands of coins, and suddenly you have a pile of pennies that's no longer trivial. But here's the twist: melting US pennies is illegal. Since 2006, the US Mint has prohibited the melting or exportation of 1-cent coins in bulk. Why? To prevent mass melting for profit. It's a strange form of economic protection, preserving a coin whose face value is now symbolic. But legality hasn't stopped the hoarding. It's an open secret in collector circles. People stockpile copper cents, believing that one day the rules will change, or inflation will surge, and their jars of heavy metal will turn into real investment. And in the heart of those jars, perhaps unknowingly, sits a 1970 D, a coin with far more than just copper going for it, but beyond metal, beyond legality, beyond hoarding, there's another change that shaped the world of coins in the post-1970 era: technology. In the 1970s, coin collecting was analog. Printed price guides. Face-to-face appraisals. Small coin shows. Newspaper classifieds. But today? It's global, digital, instant. Anyone with a phone can become a coin hunter. Anyone with a camera and a social media account can broadcast a discovery. Anyone with a YouTube channel can spark a frenzy. This transformation cannot be overstated. Online marketplaces like eBay changed the game. Suddenly, coins that once passed from collector to collector in whispered trades were being auctioned to the world. A 1970 D penny in high grade, once limited to a local show, could now reach thousands, millions, of potential buyers. And with it came a flood of listings. Some real, many exaggerated. Rare 1970 D penny worth millions, they scream. The fine print usually reveals, not graded, not authenticated, but full of hope. And buyers come. Some skeptical. Some informed. But some, new, wide-eyed, believing. This is where myth thrives. The digital age has amplified legends. What once was a footnote in a coin catalog is now a viral video. The $662 million penny myth didn't start in books. It was born on screens. It circulates through headlines, clickbait, social posts. It's repeated, mutated, distorted. And for every expert saying, "That's not possible," there are a dozen viewers wondering, "But what if it is?" And the truth is, the internet is not always wrong. It just amplifies potential. There are coins worth 6 figures. There are pennies that have sold for tens of thousands. There are discoveries made by average people with no numismatic training. In 2019, a teenager found a rare 1943 bronze Lincoln cent that sold for $204,000. He found it in a lunch money change. That story isn't myth, it's documented. And it keeps the dream alive. Today, new tools are emerging. AI-powered image recognition now helps identify coin varieties. Apps can scan a coin and suggest its condition. Digital scales, USB microscopes, macro lenses, these once niche tools are now widely available. The average hobbyist is now equipped with gear that rivals professional graders from a decade ago. And with that rise in access, comes a renaissance in collecting. More people. More eyes. More discoveries. And greater chances that a true rarity, a one-of-a-kind 1970 D error, might still be found, and that possibility excites. Because the minting process, despite its mechanized precision, is still human. Still flawed. Still capable of producing the unexpected. Maybe a Denver worker used a San Francisco die. Maybe a planchet intended for a foreign coin slipped into the machine. Maybe an experimental alloy was tested, struck, and never documented. Stranger things have happened. And collectors live for these anomalies, but even if you never find the error, never hit the jackpot, never crack the $1,000,000 code, the journey still holds value. Every roll of pennies is a small history lesson. Every worn coin tells a different story. Every discovery is a moment of connection. Not just to wealth, but to heritage, to craft, to a tactile, analog world in an increasingly digital age, and in the center of that world is the 1970 D Lincoln cent simple. Familiar. Overlooked. But legendary. Not because it's guaranteed to make you rich, but because it represents the very idea that wealth can hide in the ordinary. That history is closer than we think. That even the smallest object can carry the weight of a century, and still, even now, even after everything we've explored, we've only scratched the surface. The tale of the 1970 D cent is not static. It evolves with each generation that discovers it, each collector who seeks it, each story that is told about it. From mint floors to digital auctions, from copper rolls to myths of millions, it stands as proof that even the humblest coin can stir the soul. Somewhere, right now, a person is holding a 1970 D penny and thinking nothing of it. Maybe it's loose change in a car cup holder. Maybe it's sitting face up on the sidewalk in the rain. Maybe it's among a pile of pocket lint, gum wrappers, and buttons. That's the irony, the extraordinary can be camouflaged by the ordinary. A coin worth thousands may look, to the untrained eye, just like any other. And in that lies the central mystery of numismatics. The difference between junk and jackpot is often microscopic, invisible to all but the most patient eyes. Collectors know this. They live it. The thrill of coin collecting doesn't only lie in the coins themselves, it lies in the hunt, in the idea that truth hides beneath the surface, and that the only thing separating you from a legendary discovery is one moment of awareness. You learn to see differently. You learn to look beyond color, to inspect date fonts, to measure rim thickness, to tilt coins under light and see what others miss. A casual glance becomes an investigation. A penny becomes a portal, and yet, even professionals have been fooled. There are tales whispered in collecting circles of misattributed coins, pennies sold at flea markets for pennies, only to later be revealed as rare double dies or off-metal strikes. In some cases, coins worth tens of thousands were passed off as common change. One such story involves a 1969 Lincoln cent, almost identical to the average collector, but struck with a dramatic double die on the obverse. That coin, when finally identified and authenticated, sold for over $80,000. It had spent decades unnoticed. It was found, believe it or not, in a roll of bank-wrapped coins by a collector who wasn't even looking for anything specific. These are the stories that fuel the modern myth of coins like the 1970 D. Because if it happened with the 1969 why not its close cousin? After all, 1970 was a transitional year. The mint was experimenting. Errors from this period aren't rare, they're underreported. And that possibility, that you might be the first to recognize a new variety, is intoxicating. This is where grading companies come in. PCGS and NGC are the twin titans of modern numismatics. They don't just grade a coin's condition, they validate its significance. A coin certified by these firms doesn't just earn a number out of 70, it earns credibility, protection, marketability. Once encapsulated in their signature plastic holders, clear, tamper-proof, and barcode, a coin takes on a different life. It enters the registry. It becomes part of the official record, but these companies do more than certify condition. They shape the market. A 1970 D penny graded MS66RD by NGC may sell for $150. The same coin in MS67RD from PCGS? $850 or more. The difference might be one tiny nick, one imperceptible flaw, one greater subjective judgment. And yet the price difference is staggering. This is the strange alchemy of numismatics. Slight shifts in perception create wild changes in value, and sometimes, grading firms miss things, too. There are cases where coins labeled as normal strike are later re-examined and found to contain major doubling, or incorrect metal composition, or undocumented die cracks. This happens because no one, not even the experts, can inspect every coin under a microscope with infinite scrutiny. Time, volume, and human fallibility guarantee that some treasures slip through. Which means the door is never truly closed. Even slabs, once seen as final, can be re-examined, regraded, and rediscovered. All of this turns the 1970 Lincoln cent into more than a coin. It becomes a mirror. A test of awareness. A challenge to the masses. Can you see what others don't? Can you recognize a diamond in the dust? Because let's be honest, most people don't look at their change. They let coins pile up, lose them in the couch, forget them. But collectors? They study them. Measure them. Photograph them. Share them. They compare them against known varieties. They search for telltale signs of doubling, weak strikes, over-polished dies, misplaced digits. And in doing so, they become part of something bigger than a hobby. They become historians. Guardians. Explorers. And what happens when one of those explorers stumbles upon the real deal? A coin that the guides don't list? A 1970 Lincoln cent with doubling on the date, on Liberty, on Lincoln's eye, clear, dramatic, unmistakable? At first, there's disbelief. Then excitement. Then the slow climb of verification, submitted to a grader, analyzed, certified, possibly the first of its kind. From that moment on, everything changes. The guides must be updated. The coin becomes a reference point. Collectors clamor to find another. Prices spike. Awareness grows. History expands, the coin becomes legend. This is not fantasy. This has happened before. In 1990, it was discovered that some Lincoln cents were struck without a mint mark due to a worn die, what collectors now call the 1990 no-S-proof cent. It stunned the numismatic world. In 1982, the U.S. Mint made multiple changes mid-year to the Lincoln cent, shifting from copper to zinc, large date to small date, creating a whole spectrum of variants. Entire books have been written about just that one year. The 1970 D, though less discussed, carries the same potential. The same ingredients for mystery, rarity, and surprise, and so, the question persists, not just, is the 1970 D worth millions, but, have we truly examined all of them? The answer, almost certainly, is no. Billions were struck. Only a fraction have been closely inspected. Many remain in jars, drawers, collections, banks. Some have been discarded. Some still rest untouched in mint rolls. And in those quiet places, the extraordinary still sleeps. That's what keeps collectors coming back. That's what drives them to coin shows, to auctions, to flea markets, to estate sales, to eBay, to late-night searches by flashlight. The idea that the greatest discovery hasn't happened yet. That the most valuable 1970 D Lincoln cent has yet to be found, or perhaps has been found, but not yet recognized for what it is, because in the world of coins, recognition is everything. A masterpiece unnoticed is still just a penny. But the moment it's seen, truly seen, it changes forever. There comes a moment in the life of every collector, perhaps in a quiet room, late at night, hunched over a desk lamp with a magnifier in hand, when you ask yourself, why does this matter? Why are we drawn to coins, these small discs of metal with numbers and faces and slogans? Why does something as mundane as a penny stir something deep in the heart? The answer, though complex, is deeply human. Coins are not just objects. They are time capsules. They are history you can hold. They don't just tell stories, they are stories. Every 1970 Lincoln cent is stamped not only with metal but with meaning. When you turn it over in your hand, you are touching a piece of 1970. That was a year of revolution, contradiction, transition. The Beatles disbanded. The Vietnam War raged on. Apollo 13 nearly ended in tragedy. The first Earth Day was held. And amidst all this, at the Denver Mint, presses thundered day and night, striking billions of coins for circulation. Each one, including the humble 1-cent piece, was a silent witness to a pivotal moment in time. Coins do not forget. Unlike paper, they do not decay easily. Unlike memories, they do not fade. They survive. They wait. For decades, centuries, even millennia. And when we find them again, they remind us not just of who we were, but who we are now. That's why collectors treasure even the simplest coins. Because a 1970 penny, once you know what to look for, is no longer just change. It becomes a relic. A relic with potential. With power. With legacy, and legacy is something that cannot be bought or sold in an auction. It is passed down. It lives in stories. Many of the greatest coin collectors didn't start with money, they started with curiosity. A child getting change from a vending machine. A grandparent opening a cigar box full of old coins. A father showing a daughter how to spot a wheat penny. These are not rare stories. They are common, but they matter. Because through these small rituals, a bond forms, not just between generations, but between individuals and history. The Lincoln cent is uniquely powerful in this regard. It is, after all, the longest-running coin design in American history. First struck in 1909, the Lincoln cent marked the first time a real historical figure, Abraham Lincoln, was used on a circulating U.S. coin. It was controversial at the time. Some believed coins should only bear symbolic images. But Lincoln prevailed. His image endured. And with each passing year, as new generations took the penny for granted, the original idea gained quiet strength. Lincoln, after all, was more than a president. He was a symbol of unity, struggle, wisdom, and integrity. His face on the cent served as a constant reminder of American ideals. And perhaps it's no coincidence that the Lincoln cent has become the most widely collected coin in the world. Even those who know little about numismatics often remember the first time they spotted a wheat reverse or noticed the tiny initials, VDB, on a 1909.IN 1970. The Lincoln cent was already 61 years old. Its design had changed slightly, most notably the reverse, which in 1959 began featuring the Lincoln Memorial instead of the two wheat stalks. But the essence remained. Lincoln facing right. The words, "In God we trust," arcing over his head. Liberty, to his left. The date, flanked by a small d, anchoring the lower right. Simple. Familiar. Ubiquitous. But inside that design were layers of meaning. The memorial reverse itself included a tiny depiction of the seated Lincoln statue, making it the only U.S. coin at the time to feature the same person twice on a single piece of currency. That kind of hidden symbolism speaks to the coin's deeper identity. It was never just about commerce. It was about memory. Civic pride. National unity. And the 1970 D was born into an era where all those concepts were being tested. America was at a crossroads. The Lincoln cent, small as it was, continued to circulate in every pocket, cash register, lunch tray, and gas station across the country. It connected people. Poor and rich. Young and old. It passed between strangers. It bore silent witness to a million mundane acts of life. And through that silent ubiquity, it became something more. It became part of the American fabric. And that's why we collect it. That's why, 50 years later, people still search rolls, still check dates, still examine every detail of their change. Because we're not just looking for errors or high grades. We're looking for meaning. For continuity. For that thin copper thread that links us to something bigger, and sometimes, we do find value, measurable, marketable, life-changing value. A 1970s small date in high grade has fetched thousands. A double die can transform a 1-cent coin into a $7,000 asset. Even a subtle variation in the shape of a 9 or a die gouge near Lincoln's jacket can signal a known variety worth hundreds. And those discoveries are not theoretical. They are real. They are happening every day, but perhaps the greatest discovery is not what's found in the coin, but what's found in ourselves during the search. Patience. Attention to detail. Appreciation of craftsmanship. The ability to learn from subtlety. These are not just skills. They are virtues. And coin collecting, when practiced with care, cultivates them all, and so the 1970s, though common in numbers, is rare in presence. It becomes rare the moment we give it our attention. It becomes valuable the moment we understand its story. And it becomes legendary the moment we recognize its power to connect past to present, metal to meaning, history to heart. Every collector, whether child or elder, knows the joy of discovery. The moment when you turn a coin and realize something's different. The date looks odd. The surface gleams unusually bright. There's a crack, a doubling, a detail you've never seen before. And then comes the rush. The breathlessness. The race to the magnifier. The research. The comparisons. The possibility. It's like hearing an old song played with a new note, familiar, but suddenly electric. That's the magic of this world. A penny is never just a penny. And the 1970s, modest and many though it may be, contains all that magic. All that potential. All that meaning.